Hey, this is Peggy with EZPZ Machine Embroidery, and this is like the second time I've tried doing this EDO file in Premiere+ to create to make the Crazy Patch Easter egg mug rug, so it's really not that easy peasy. So I'm gonna try it again and repost this video. So we are going to be in Premiere+2 Create Ultra. And you are going to go to the lower left-hand corner and grab the little tulip icon. It should open like this, and we're just going to get rid of that. And we are going to use, in the Quick Create tab, the Shape Maker. We are going to use the circle, but we're going to turn off the pattern by clicking on the upper portion of that icon. And we are going to change satin line to a running stitch for now. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my circle and click the shape. I am going to make that shape about like this. I'm going to go and check and see what size my hoop is. 200 by 200. That is good because I'm going to use, well, no, it's not. I'm going to do enter hoop size. I'm going to use a 260 by 200, so I want to have about a 185 by 245, something to that effect. And then I'm going to resize it. Okay, so there is my first stitch line, and that would be the stitching that I'm going to do on my stabilizer. I'm going to duplicate that stitch, and I'm going to try to get it as close to that first stitch line as I can. That is going to be the placement line as far as, not a placement line, but a stitch down line for my Warm and Natural batting. And I'm going to do that one more time. And we're going to duplicate. And this will be the stitching line for my muslin, which will be the base of my Crazy Patch egg. So, and I always do a right click, insert color change. Between each time I want the machine to stop. By selecting the stitch. So we have one stitch that is going to be blue, one stitch green, one stitch brown. And now I'm going to do insert color change again. And just pick another color, any old color, it doesn't matter what. So now I've got my batting stitch down, my muslin stitch down. So now I need to create stitch lines for my Crazy Patch. And what I want to do now is, and these can all be the same color because it's just going to be a stitch out, I'm going to go into the Precise Create tab, and I'm just going to make some single stitch lines, right click to make the stitch. Right click to make another stitch. If you want to move lines a little bit, make them a little bit longer, thicker, whatever, you can go ahead and grab those nodes. Okay, so fabric 1 and 2 would both be laying down, face down. Yeah, not face down, but faces, right sides facing, and you'd stitch this line out eventually. And then I'm going to make a third line down here, which will be moved later, because that will be the last thing I stitch out. Right click, and then I am going to do another line up to about there. And I'm actually going to leave this stitching line there, and it will just be a fold over, and I can trim this away if I want to or whatever. So eventually the crazy patch is going to stitch out this seam first, then you will lay this piece of fabric that has been cut just about a ½ inch larger than this outline. You'll fold it right sides together against here, and then you're going to add this fabric right sides together against this section, so this seam, and then you're going to do this one, folding it so right sides together against these two seams. And I always use like an applique iron, just some type of a small iron to iron these seams down as I do them. So from there, we have these are placement stitches, and it's going to show me where I'm going to create my seams. Also, if you are if you needed a template, you could also stitch this out on a basically a not a tearaway, a cutaway stabilizer. Stitch that out and cut these pieces out to use as templates. Or you can, when the project is finished, you go to a file and print, and design scale should be 100%. You don't need color information. It'll print out that egg on 2 or 3 sheets of paper. You're going to cut the edges off, match the seams, tape it, and then cut those pieces out, and then cut new pieces of fabric that are about a third of an inch larger than the template. Anyway, so I am going to add a new color. So I right click to get this menu, and I'm going to add a red this time. And I'm going to duplicate these running stitches, right click, copy. I'm going to click on the red and right click, paste. Okay. And I better change out one thing before I get going here. This line right here needs to be at the bottom. So I'm just going to move it down, left click and drag. And the same thing here. I'm going to left click and drag it under so that that stitches out last. So remember, on this section, this is the actual stitch lines. You're facing right sides together on all the fabrics to get and opening them after they're stitched out and ironing. Okay, now we've got to do a couple other things. And I'm just going to show you very basics here, and then I'll bring up my actual EDO file to show you what it looks like when you're done doing all this. So after all those lines are done and your fabric is sewn on, the next step would be in this design file to create the motifs and the fills and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to grab a motif fill. You can choose any of those that you want. And I am going to go into Precise Create. I clicked on any color to deselect what was on the screen. Precise Create. I've got a motif. Create area or line. I'm going to hold down the Control key to get a angle. And then I'm just going to go around the edge, and I can move these nodes as I need to. And then I'm going to right click once and then 2 more times. And I'm going to go into the different, I'm going to go into the FAF stitches for now. I'm going to go into the section that says Crazy Patch, and I'm going to just pick this one and say apply. I also move this little screen out so I can see what I'm doing, because you can increase the size right here. Say apply. And I want you to make sure that you are aware that you can use 2 motifs at the same time. Just click the box and you can pick a motif there. I'm gonna pick a star. So there we go for a motif. And you do that with the rest of those boxes. So I did this one and this one and then this one and this one, and then I did this one. Now this was just a placement line here, so that when you do this fill, you're going to go all the way around it. And this line won't matter at all anymore. You can actually cut part of this away that's under this overlap if you'd like. It can be left there, it doesn't matter. So left click, or right click, sorry, right click, and then 2 more times right click, and you would change your motif fill to whatever you want. I just picked a radial. I'm gonna move this so I can see where it is. I can also move that radial around and things like that. Okay, so now I'm gonna go over to my other file. So this is the same basic file. There's the running stitches. Here are the stitches, and I put a color in between each one so that they would stop for the purpose of you laying down another fabric. And remember, to get the new color, you do a right click to bring up that menu. There's my motif stitches. Once you get that EDO file created, you can go back in and do that right click and do whatever fills you want and make them different. Then I had to add the satin lines. Now these are the satin lines, I don't have to have any color in between them. So all I did was go up and paste, copy and paste my original 2, 3, 4 files. Right click, copy, came down here and added my color change, right click, pasted. So those are my satin stitches. Once those satin stitches are laid down, I do one more color change, And I copied and pasted the original running stitch from up at the top, the oval, down here. And then these two stitches right here, I made another color change. These two stitches down here are very short lines. And I tried to kind of hit it somewhere in the middle. That is for the purpose of when you do the very back, you're going to take two pieces of fabric. You're going to iron the width under about 1/4 of an inch, fold it over one more time and iron it again. So it's you're using basically 3/4 of an inch. And you're going to overlap those two fabrics with the right side against the side of the egg with all the motifs, so right sides together, and you're going to overlap them right in this area. So this line right here that I created hopefully will tack down where the overlap is. And I want to say here that when you are stitching this out, make sure that you are using a stylus or taping down your fabric or something to keep the sensor Q foot from snagging on where the two are overlapping. So it does those two stitches, and then once those are done, you can do this is the last stitch is a triple stitch around everything. Now, the other thing I want to mention is after I've done my satin lines, and the running stitch here, after I've done this running stitch, I trim with applique shears around this whole oval. Do not cut through the stabilizer. Do not unhoop, but you're going to cut around that, and you're also going to cut around the warm and natural batting or whatever you used on the back side. So all you have is just the oval with the fabric. Okay, so now you've got the two back sides placed overlapping. You're going to do that triple stitch. It's going to stitch around 3 times, and then you're going to turn right sides out and put an iron to it to iron it down, flatten it down, and then you're done. Okay, thanks. Bye bye. I better add one more thing. When you've got this all completed, do not forget to do a save as. And so then you name it. Notice it has an EDO file. I have a special folder in my Sonnet folder for EDO files called EDO files. That EDO file you can open up later on and go through and change those motifs out however you like. And then you also need to do a file export embroidery and put that embroidery wherever you keep your embroidery files. Should you want to open up that EDO file at some other time, we're going to say new, and we'd say load existing design, and we'd say next, and then we'd be able to browse out and find that EDO file wherever we put it. Okay, now we're finished. Bye. Thanks for listening.